This sweet and talented girl that we all met in The Parent Trap ended up looking like this as she grew up. A wild woman, aged and consumed by a life full of excesses. But how does one go from one extreme to the other? To understand it, we need to review her story from beginning to end and examine a phenomenon known as the Disney girl effect. When she was just a little girl, no one thought she would end up this way. Look at her here. We can see her when she was just a child. Her full name is Lindsay Lohan, born in July 1986 in New York City. Her mother, Dina, is a former singer and dancer with extensive experience and knowledge in the entertainment world, while her father, Michael, is a former Wall Street trader. Everything seems normal at first glance. But years later, when Lindsay is already famous, interviews with her parents reveal that life at home was not easy. From a young age, she witnessed complicated situations. Her father struggled with addiction, was violent, and was arrested several times for crimes related to insider trading. So, during the periods when Michael was in prison and her parents' marriage was going through crises, her mother worked as a dance teacher in the city and took little Lindsay with her to the dance studios. There, though she was still too young to participate, Lindsay became interested in that world and even started taking ballet classes. It's likely during these moments that her mother realized Lindsay had the charisma and charm needed to stand out in the entertainment industry. So, she decided to give her a chance and enrolled her in Ford Models, one of the most prestigious agencies in New York. At just 3 years old, the girl began working as a model, launching a career that would take her far, but also drag her into the depths. In a short time, Lindsay became a public figure, participating in campaigns for Calvin Klein Kids and Abercrombie, where her photogenic image and natural beauty set her apart from other child models. Her red hair, tender smile, fair skin, and freckles made her a perfect match for any brand or photographer in need of a face. In fact, her grace and modeling talent were so remarkable that, as the years passed and she grew, Lindsay went on to star in around 60 television commercials, appear in well-known magazines, and, thanks to her charisma and experience in front of the camera, became the favorite of brands for their ads. Thanks to all these appearances, the girl became a success as a model, which opened even more doors in the industry. Job offers soon followed, and among them came the opportunity to appear as an extra on a show called Sesame Street, one of the most iconic educational series of all time, famous for its mix of actors and the unforgettable Muppets. In this role, Lindsay sings the alphabet with one of them, and though it seems like a small part, it marks the beginning of her television journey, opening the door to much bigger opportunities. For example, thanks to this experience, at age 10, she landed her first leading role in Another World. This is an American soap opera that follows the lives and relationships of the inhabitants of the fictional city of Bay City. Unlike many other soap operas of the time, Another World explored more realistic and complex conflicts, such as divorces, infidelities, crimes, business struggles, and family disputes, rather than focusing solely on romance. One of its central themes was how the characters lived between two worlds, the one they were in and the one they aspired to reach, whether in love, wealth, or personal redemption. Lindsay Lohan appears as Alexandra Fowler, a girl from a powerful and wealthy family facing the conflicts stemming from her parents' tense relationship. In the series, her character goes through highly emotional situations, giving her the perfect opportunity to showcase her great acting talent. This role is key because it's no longer just a cameo or a short commercial, but a leading role that opens even bigger doors in the industry. Thanks to this project, her face becomes increasingly recognized, propelling her to sign with the prestigious talent agency William Morris, known for representing some of Hollywood's biggest stars. Now, backed by such a renowned agency, and still a child, Lindsay takes a major leap in her career. Meanwhile, Walt Disney prepares to film a remake of the 1961 classic The Parent Trap. For this new movie, the company is looking for an actress capable of playing the two sisters with completely opposite personalities and accents. But this role is a significant challenge, requiring someone with great acting versatility to master both British and American accents convincingly. The story of twin sisters separated at birth is overseen by the director of this film, Nancy Meyers, who must choose the best candidate, as the original version starring Hayley Mills set a very high bar to meet. Many girls audition, all dreaming of starring as the twin sisters, including Lindsay Lohan. The problem is that standing out in such a competitive casting in Hollywood requires sufficient skills and talent, and it's practically impossible to succeed without connections. But if you have a good agent or the support of an influential agency, your chances of landing the role increase. In this girl's case, she is represented by the important William Morris Agency, and her prior industry experience already works in her favor. The selection process at Disney is rigorous. The company is one of the biggest in entertainment, and for its films, it has a demanding audition system. Aspiring actors must go through multiple rounds and screen tests to demonstrate talent, charisma, and image. Lindsay passes all these tests and proves to be exactly what Disney is looking for, ultimately securing the role. The filming then begins, and she starts working tirelessly, as she must shoot every scene twice, once for each twin's personality. Nevertheless, from day one, she proves that, despite her young age, she is a true professional. In fact, Dennis Quaid, who plays her father in the movie, expresses his admiration for her in multiple interviews, describing her as the smartest child he has ever met. He also recounts that during filming, Lindsay would learn her lines, disappear for a few minutes, and return transformed into the other twin, something impressive for someone so young. This is a major challenge for both the child and Disney, as making a single actress bring two characters to life on screen in a believable way, without it being obvious they are the same person, required exceptional technical work. To achieve this, the team used the most advanced motion control techniques available, along with Aaron McKay, a stand-in who served as a reference for shared scenes. And yes, I might be breaking the illusion that these two sisters really existed, but the truth is that Lindsay's work was so flawless that it convinced many of us that there were actually two twins instead of one actress playing them. After all this hard work from the production team and cast, which includes figures like Natasha Richardson, Elaine Hendricks, Dennis Quaid, among others, in 1998 The Parent Trap hits theaters and quickly becomes a global phenomenon. Theaters fill with excited families eager to discover this new version, and this, combined with the charm of the story and the charisma of its young lead, turns it into a resounding success, grossing approximately $90 million worldwide in just a few months, positioning The Parent Trap as one of the company's biggest hits of the 1990s. Thanks to this performance, two things happen. First, the girl receives nominations at the Teen Choice Awards and other youth awards, and second, Disney discovers a star they don't intend to let go, offering her a contract for more future projects, such as Life Size, The Parent Trap, and a more significant project called Freaky Friday, which I'll tell you more about later. Her career takes off in an incredible way, but here comes the downside. The entertainment industry has its demanding and dark side. For example, Disney has built an image of family-friendly entertainment over many years, and because of this, there are rumors that the company maintains strict control over the lives of its young stars, deciding almost every aspect of their public image. That is, between constant commitments and intense work schedules, the children and teens working for Disney seem to be under permanent media scrutiny, all with the goal of protecting the impeccable image the company projects and avoiding any controversy that could harm them. This, not to mention that safeguarding their talent's image can lead to greater future earnings. From here, we can already notice the first signs or steps toward what will be her downward spiral, or rather, the phenomenon known as the Disney boy or girl effect, also called the child star syndrome, a phenomenon seen in multiple cases of child actors who, upon reaching adulthood, face personal crises and self-destructive behaviors, as is about to happen to Lindsay, who in just a few years we will see transition from being a sweet and tender girl to having legal troubles, alcohol issues, substance abuse problems, and an unprecedented physical and emotional decline. I'll explain this phenomenon as this story unfolds, but for now, it's important to start understanding some key points. When a child is introduced to the entertainment world at a very young age, as in the case of Lindsay Lohan, their life is typically fully regulated by adults, people who may serve as producers, managers, or even parents. This can result in the important decisions of their life being made by those around them rather than by themselves. They are imposed a public image they must maintain at all costs, and generally, their normal exploration of identity and personal development is restricted. This excessive control tends to create a serious problem, a lack of psychological and emotional autonomy. In other words, they live in an extreme where they are not allowed to learn to handle independence and autonomy, something that will be crucial to understanding what will happen to this girl later on. In Lindsay's case, still a child, she finds herself in the position of having to continue studying while working, so between classes, she fulfills a growing list of projects, and her life begins to revolve entirely around work. Now she has a wave of opportunities, but also responsibilities that are not typical for someone her age. Around the age of 14, both Hollywood and Disney begin vying for her in their productions. Thanks to this, she secures a role in the comedy series Bet, aired on CBS. In this series, she also plays a daughter, but this time to the famous Bette Midler, who portrays herself as a divine celebrity adored by her fans and involved in eccentric situations, like when she gets into trouble for fabricating a story about saving a child's life. Though the project seems promising, the first episode, released as a pilot, fails to connect with the audience. The reviews are unfavorable, and viewership numbers plummet rapidly. So, Lindsay decides to leave the show after recording only the first episode that aired, and another actress takes her place, marking her first stumble in her career. After this, the girl, now a teenager, decides to move to California in search of new opportunities. In Los Angeles, she meets Raven-Symoné, another Disney star, and together they decide to live in the same apartment. However, Lindsay continues to carry the fame from The Parent Trap, which gains more fans with each passing year. And while all this is happening, her personal life also starts to come under public scrutiny. Amid her hectic routine, Aaron Carter, the younger brother of Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, enters the picture, and Lindsay begins a relationship with him. But this is overshadowed by media opinion, as outlets start talking about an alleged love triangle involving them and Hilary Duff, another Disney star. Beyond that, the girl seems to lead a normal life, but it's said that during this stage, Lindsay begins attending parties surrounded by industry people, where she tries some illicit substances. I say it's said because there's no concrete evidence that this happened, but the behaviors she later exhibits have led many to speculate that it did. And substances aren't her only first encounter with the less glamorous side of the industry. Another thing she's about to experience is the constant invasion of her privacy, which will soon become much worse. But it's time to return a bit to her career. Regarding this, Disney starts offering her more mature roles, which we can assume is part of a strategy designed to take her career to the next level and turn her into a Disney girl. Lindsay has grown, and getting an actress who became famous as a child to continue shining in her teenage years is no easy feat, especially if the actor or actress in question had a film as iconic in this stage of life as The Parent Trap. For that reason, and to keep generating money from the fame and recognition she now enjoys, Disney faces the challenge of having the public accept her in new roles without being typecast in the past. To achieve this, it seems the company decides to design a transition to make her a long-term project. They give her increasingly mature roles that align with the stage of life Lindsay is in, as a strategy to keep her relevant and shape her public identity as they wish. So, as she grows, it's possible that Disney tried to keep her within their system, perhaps exerting even more control over her image. If they succeed, Lindsay could become one of the most profitable actresses of her generation, shining in every stage of her life. The next step is to give her the opportunity to reaffirm different facets of her talent and acting style. Alongside Jamie Lee Curtis, Lindsay takes on a leading role in a project called Freaky Friday, marking her transition from child star to teenage lead. This movie is a classic, but if you haven't seen it yet, here's what it's about. Lindsay brings to life Anna Coleman, a rebellious teenager who has many conflicts with her mother, Dr. Tess Coleman, a strict psychologist. They are polar opposites. Anna constantly complains and accuses her mother of ruining her life, while Tess is more concerned with her patients than with her own daughter. However, their lives take a strange turn when, after an argument at a Chinese restaurant, a mysterious fortune cookie and luck trigger a spell. The next morning, the mother and daughter's consciousnesses wake up swapped in each other's bodies. But this, beyond being a somewhat cruel joke, becomes a huge problem, as Anna has a crucial band audition that coincides with Tess's wedding rehearsal. Time is against them, so both must learn to see the world from the other's perspective while finding a way to reverse the spell before their lives change forever. The result of this film is an incredible success. The movie grosses around $160 million at the box office and receives praise from both audiences and critics. But for Lindsay, it's more than that. It's a confirmation of her talent and versatility. Once again, she plays two characters in one body, balancing teenage irreverence with the maturity of an adult woman, and she does it spectacularly. In fact, in an interview, she admits that one of the most challenging scenes was the iconic body swap moment, as she had to convey panic, not as a teenager would, but as an adult woman trapped in her daughter's body. The accolades soon follow. At the MTV Movie Awards, she wins the Breakthrough Female Performance Award. The success of Freaky Friday seems to give Disney what they needed to turn her into a teenage star. After this film, Disney reinforces her image as a teen star with movies like Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen and Mean Girls, both of which catapult her to massive stardom. The company has created a goldmine, and her image is used for everything: commercials, movies, and even music albums. That's right. Curiously, in Freaky Friday, Lindsay sang a couple of songs, including the iconic final scene with Ultimate. She did it well and connected with the teenage audience who saw the movie, which motivated her to try her luck in music. So, she released her first album, Speak, which, incredibly, performs well commercially. Songs like Rumors and Over managed to chart. By 2004, the young woman finds herself at the peak of her career. All of this has turned her into one of the most popular young people of the moment. Her face graces magazine covers. Her name is mentioned in every corner of Hollywood, and though her music doesn't dominate the industry, she has built a solid fan base. Each new project opens new doors, and she even switches agencies to Creative Artists Agency, which conveniently has close ties with Disney, as it represents numerous talents who collaborate on their productions, including actors, directors, and writers. It could be that, while Lindsay enjoys her success, the pressure on her continues to grow. From the outside, it's clear that her life is pushed to an extreme. Many responsibilities, very little freedom, and, apparently, an identity shaped by others. And it seems that's how it's been throughout her life. At this point, Disney has built her image exactly as they wanted, but it seems they didn't give her the tools to handle fame. And, unfortunately, like many other young stars from the company, she begins to face a phenomenon popularly known as the Disney effect. Pay attention to what's about to happen. Lindsay reaches her 20s with fame, money, an environment filled with questionable influences, and very little freedom in her personal life. A combination that can be dangerous for some people. Like many young people her age, she starts going out to parties, but she does so alongside figures like Britney Spears and Paris Hilton, well known for a phase of excess and a self-destructive lifestyle. Thus, Lindsay begins to get involved in similar situations, always closely followed by paparazzi. By 2005, the girl continues working while trying to lead a somewhat normal personal life. This time, she heads the cast of Herbie, Fully Loaded, which turns out to be her last collaboration with Disney. Years of responsibilities and constant media scrutiny seem to start affecting her. Because of this, it's said that the pressure of not being able to freely enjoy her personal life may have driven her to want to change her lifestyle, leading her to completely distance herself from the company. The problem is that leaving Disney doesn't erase her fame, and now she finds herself unprotected against the media, which begin to see her personal life, filled with family scandals, internal conflicts, wild parties, and an apparent relationship with substances, as a topic of great interest. From this point, a dark period begins where Lindsay's life turns into a constant cycle of scandals, rehab, and confinement. What was once a brilliant career full of promise seems to start crumbling. As time passes, the girl continues with this unproductive lifestyle, and the substance issue appears to be spiraling out of control. Her family and loved ones begin admitting her to rehab centers, but rather than genuine attempts to heal, it seems more like a strategy to appease the press. And before long, she's seen acting the same way as before. In 2007, her spiral of self-destruction reaches a critical point when she is arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol and with substances in her vehicle. Just 2 months later, she reoffends, leading to a second arrest. She then pleads guilty and receives a sentence of rehab, community service, and probation, along with the requirement to attend substance abuse classes. Meanwhile, Lindsay still carries the fame she accumulated over the years, so she continues attending crowded spots in Beverly Hills, fashion events in Paris, galas in New York, exclusive events in London, and more. But at this point, the impact of her reckless lifestyle becomes evident. Her body and face are no longer what they once were. They now reflect the effects of substance abuse. She looks much older and more worn out than just a couple of years ago, which works against her, as the beauty she was once admired for now becomes a target of criticism. Magazine covers and news reports focus on her obvious decline and the deterioration of her image. At this point, we've seen the consequences of what's called child star syndrome. When these child actors reach adulthood, a critical moment occurs where external control begins to wane, and often for the first time in their lives, they can make decisions for themselves. The problem is that they never learned to self-regulate because there was always someone regulating them from the outside. As a result, we have the pendulum effect. Some swing from an extreme of total control to an extreme of total chaos. If going out to parties, exercising their own will, experimenting, and rebelling were restricted before, now these desires intensify with greater force, as we know that no desire grows stronger than when it's forbidden. But more importantly, since there was never a prior balance, freedom is experienced in an impulsive and unrestrained way. First, because it's something they long to experience, and second, because they never developed the tools to self-regulate constructively. And while personal experience plays a huge role, we can't overlook the impact of the environment, because it's not the same to experience sudden freedom in a mountain in the middle of nowhere as it is in Hollywood, where she already had access to unlimited money, easy access to substances and alcohol, and influences that normalize or even celebrate excess. Combining both factors, we can argue that if a person who has never handled freedom constructively enters an environment full of excesses, it's very likely they'll end up trapped in a destructive cycle. This decline seems to have no end. By 2010, she is no longer the prodigy from The Parent Trap or the teen star of Freaky Friday. Her life is marked by scandals and legal battles, where she is sentenced to 90 days in prison followed by 90 days of rehab for failing to comply with the conditions of her sentence, which she didn't fully serve. A few months later, her name is back in the headlines, this time for an even bigger scandal. She is accused of stealing a $500 necklace from a jewelry store in Venice Beach, California, and is sentenced to 120 days in prison, serving her time under house arrest. Despite everything, the girl keeps fighting to reclaim what once was her career. From this point, she tries to participate in Liz and Dick, a TV movie where she plays Elizabeth Taylor, seen as her last chance at redemption. But that streak of successes is long gone, and what should have been her triumphant return becomes another reminder of how her talent has been buried by her reputation. The world watches her, wondering if she will ever recover. And finally, something that reinforced this cycle of excesses was the constant media attention, as every mistake Lindsay made was not just a personal error, but became a global spectacle, literally. And that's terrible because public criticism can reinforce her self-image as a bad girl and generate more stress and anxiety, leading her to consume more substances or engage in more impulsive behaviors to relieve that anxiety, creating a self-destructive loop. What happened to Lindsay is not new. We've seen it before. For example, Demi Lovato, who also grew up in the Disney world, ended up struggling with mental health issues and substance abuse. Then there's Miley Cyrus. After playing Hannah Montana, She had to work hard to distance herself from that character, and we've seen how, over time, it cost her to reconcile with that Disney-linked past. Her case is similar to Lindsay's, though not as extreme. When Miley left the company, she adopted a more rebellious and controversial image, partly as a radical way to mark her distance. Yes, I'm referring to the Wrecking Ball video, which many will surely remember and which caused a huge stir at the time. But this isn't exclusive to child stars. It can be fostered by any context involving excessive control or strict rules. In these cases, the person might end up swinging to the opposite extreme. You don't need to be famous to experience this phenomenon. But in the case of actors who worked on Disney productions, it's more noticeable because, first, they are public figures constantly talked about, and second, because their changes are more evident since they've been under public scrutiny since childhood. I'll give you an example to make it clearer. Imagine a girl who grows up in a very strict environment where her parents or caregivers control every aspect of her life, imposing rigid rules and restricting her freedom. She never learns to make decisions for herself or to handle independence progressively. When she finally gains freedom, she doesn't know how to regulate herself because she never had the chance to develop that judgment. For example, if she was never allowed to go out to parties, not even with reasonable limits, when she can finally do so without supervision, it's likely she'll make impulsive decisions that put her at risk or that she won't know how to handle constructively, not because she's inherently irresponsible, but because no one ever taught her to set her own boundaries. The forbidden becomes more attractive, and without prior experiences to help her learn gradually, her first time in that environment could lead her to act recklessly. After living under so much repression, rebellion and excess can become her only way to assert herself and reclaim the control that was once denied her. But without a reference point, that freedom could turn chaotic and lead to self-destructive behaviors that are hard to stop. And the thing is, when you're never taught to find balance, you lack a constructive reference point, and extremes can become that reference. Returning to Lindsay, the girl reached a point where she made one last attempt at rehab at Cliffside, Malibu. And after this, she begins a new chapter in her life. She gives an interview with Oprah Winfrey, where she speaks frankly about her inner struggles, acknowledging her addiction to alcohol and substances. She also talks about her relapses, her efforts to regain control, and her firm desire to change. It seems that, at last, the public sees a girl willing to face the consequences of her past. Years pass, the scandals decrease, and though her career never reaches the same level of success, she finds something more valuable: peace. After disappearing from the public eye for a while, she finds a partner, gets married, and moves to Dubai, where no photographer can invade her privacy, as being a paparazzi is illegal there. There, she starts a family, becomes a mother, and it seems the past has finally been healed. Since the birth of her son Louis, the actress shares her new role as a mother with the world, posting photos of her baby and sharing family moments on social media. But motherhood isn't her only return to the public eye. Lindsay also returns to acting, starring in a romantic comedy called Falling for Christmas on Netflix, which leads to several new offers. And in 2024, she comes back to the big screen with two new romantic comedies. In one of them, Irish Wish, she shares the screen with Tim Meadows, who was her co-star in Mean Girls. From this comeback, there's something much more anticipated by many, as they are currently filming the sequel to Freaky Friday in March 2025, scheduled for release in August of this year. After years of struggle, scandals, and wrong decisions, Lindsay finally seems to have found the stability she longed for. Away from the paparazzi and surrounded by love, she begins a new chapter where motherhood and her return to cinema offer her a new opportunity to find peace. In her latest public appearances, Lindsay looks renewed and happier than ever. Her fresh, energetic look has surprised many, who say she now looks even better than when she was young. The physical transformation she has undergone is so impressive that many wonder how she went from looking one way to how she is now. As, being older, she seems better than ever. And now, those extremes can be avoided. The truth is that, as parents or guardians, there are no absolute guarantees in life except death, but you can influence children to develop a better capacity for decision-making. It's not about imposing total control or letting them do whatever they want without guidance, but about helping them build a balance. Returning to the example of the girl who was never allowed to go out to parties, the key isn't to forbid it indefinitely or to let her go without preparation, but to allow her to experience it with certain limits that help her develop judgment. If she was ever able to go out under certain conditions, like setting curfews, teaching her to recognize risky situations, and giving her confidence to ask for help if needed, it's more likely that, when she has full independence, she'll know how to handle herself without falling into dangerous excesses. The same applies to cases like Lindsay Lohan's. Such extreme situations can be prevented, but that requires several factors that aren't always present in these stories. Factors like a solid support system, independent identity development, autonomy, access to psychological tools, and a healthy environment can help make better decisions and learn to handle freedom without going to extremes. At its core, the key seems to be balance. If, from a young age, we're taught to make decisions with autonomy, but also with responsibility, we'd have more tools to manage our freedom without it becoming a weapon against us. Because when someone has learned to navigate their independence with confidence, they no longer need to swing from one extreme to the other to feel free.